Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining our Syelo Tank today. We have Sebastian and Ali here with Cooked. They're going to be presenting their tool to us. I believe, Sebastian, you're in the recruiting space, if I'm not mistaken. So knows the ins and outs. So we are going to be presenting them today. Again, everyone knows the format here. They're going to do their pitch. We'll open it up for questions. Feel free to come off mute if you have questions, or you can put them in the chat. I will ask for you. And then we will open up questions for Cooked, and they can ask our group. Awesome. Whenever y'all are ready to kick off, feel free to start presenting.
Let's go. Yes, I think we'll kick it off with a couple of intros. I'll go first, and then Seb will go, and we'll get into what we're working on with Cooked. So yeah, my name is Ali. Previously, before this, most of my career has been in engineering. I was the head of engineering at Posh, which was a really popular consumer event startup where users can go on and kind of find events to go to in New York City. Whilst I was there, I built the application, and I also hired the first 20 engineers. So it was a good experience. It was a lot of learning, hiring. I'm not a recruiter myself at all, mostly just an engineer. And yeah, I left there about a year ago. And I've been messing around with recruiting tech, and me and Seb met up and have been working on Cooked. Seb, you want to go?
Yeah. So Sabrina mentioned I've got a background in recruiting. So I've been recruiting for 7 years, and I started at a staffing agency in tech systems at Orlando. I was helping Disney and Universal Studios find web developers. Did that for a couple of years. Started my own agency, was helping a lot of startups hire engineers. And then I joined an early stage startup in New York called WAP. It was about 20 people, scaled it up to 100, was running talent stuff there. And yeah, I like you guys know, there's a lot of challenges in recruiting. And so I started working with Ali on Cooked to start helping out with some of the challenges that I had when I was at WAP, which was processing a lot of our inbound and basically helping with engineering hiring at the org.
Awesome. Yeah. So what is Cooked, and why do we work on it? I think, one of the first things that we sort of notice about the chaotic world that is hiring is that companies spend tons of money to get attention and attract applicants. But they have really poor systems for actually going through large volumes of applicants and being able to spot matches at scale. And so in a literal sense, I mean, we just saw a lot of people ignore their inbound and kind of have no faith in it, even though a lot of their recruiting efforts would actually be increasing the amount of applicants and increasing inbound. So what we essentially decided to do is we were like, let's focus on this and solving this. Let's focus on it for engineering, because we understand how to hire engineers very well. It's all I've hired, and a lot of Sebastian's hires were engineers. And we wanted to kind of build a new type of ATS that would research every company and every candidate that comes in through it. And we do this research using LLMs, using some of these newer providers that allow you to sort of search the web with an LLM. And what we're essentially doing is we're parsing and normalizing all the candidate data. And we're also allowing our users to kind of generate their own custom signals on top of it. And so what happens on the other end is, out of maybe 1,000 or 2,000 applicants, you kind of get surfaced the top 10 to 40 of those as you're running your hiring cycle, and you interview them and you make a placement. And so that's kind of what we've been able to do with Cooked. And honestly, like, the best way to sort of see this all come about is through a demo. So I'd love to show you guys some of the stuff we've been working on. To kind of understand where Cooked fits into the stack, Cooked does integrate with every major ATS, but it can also be used as a standalone ATS. We integrate because obviously a lot of our customers maybe have talent teams already and maybe want to get this data into a bigger ATS that they use for all their roles. So everything at Cooked sort of starts with creating a job posting, right? Now, internally, we actually call them job advertisements because we think job postings are just bad framing. You should be advertising the job, not just listing out all your requirements, right? And the way we really wanted people to have a really easy way to create attractive job ads without putting in much effort. And so this is usually how people create job ads on the platform. I'll be able to put in here callsheet.com. Callsheet's hot right now. And we're going to load in Callsheet in a second. And what we're doing here is, while this is sort of happening, we're researching the company and we're looking up all kinds of things about it. Things that are related to brand, like the logo and the banner, but also all their investors, right? Anything that we can pitch to a candidate later on. And for some investors, we'll even get data as rich as like, when did they invest in them? What type of investor is this, etc. We get basic information like when the company was founded and location and all that jazz. And we allow users to either start with templates or import a job posting right here. So I'm going to grab this job posting that I have live for backend engineer. I'm just going to paste it in. This is going to take a second. But essentially, what's going to come out on the other side here is a job advertisement that has some of the information from their role, but these other things that allow the candidates to kind of learn more about the company, like attached websites, like copy that pitches the mission, and then, you know, your basic stuff like title and compensation. And so here we can see everything loaded up, and we have, you know, kind of some exciting copy at the top here, just pitches call sheet. All this copy has actually been trained on a bunch of examples that Seb and I have written out for real companies. And so if we had the time to read it all, it would actually all read pretty well. We also attach like recent publications or recent articles that Callsheet has appeared in. These are the top 5, but you can add as many as we've sort of looked up while we were researching it. We obviously have the, you know, the classic about the role section, which is pulled from their role. And then we have, you know, your title, comp, and everything. And so here's like another job ad that is actually for one of our customers that we're working with right now. This is for a customer called GovDash. This is where candidates apply. On the other end is obviously where you manage your applicants and where you manage, you know, how candidates should get screened. And so you can see here, this is the same job advertisement, but with some extra editing. Now, what's cool here is I can kind of go into the crux of the app, which is our screening flows, right? I mean, Sebastian made this one, so it's pretty thorough. We say it looks like a spear, kind of does. What's kind of happening here is, like, on the left, you have the candidate. And the candidate in this case is like the candidate's application for this job, right? So this is their resume. This is any information we'll be able to parse on them from the web, in addition to their LinkedIn, etc. And the candidate is able to go through these kind of like user-defined workflows of screening, essentially. And so this first screen is set up here to check for sponsorship, right? Saying that we want a strong yes to a candidate that does not require sponsorship and a strong no to a candidate that does, right? And it's just some basic stuff. This job doesn't kind of, you know, support sponsorships, and it kind of keeps going. And you can sequentially change them. So that way it's like, if I'm checking for this and they pass for this, I'll check for that as well. And it can, you know, you could parallelize the checks, etc. This check, for example, is a bit more about, here, let me drag it here so you can see it, is a bit more actually checking for some domain expertise. So, you know, have they had like freelance or contracting jobs before? Have they worked in NYC? You know, basic stuff. And this stuff can sort of expand to whatever you'd like it to. At the end, after all this data is screened and everybody passes, candidates can end up in a shortlist that's specified by the shortlist node here. And, you know, you can kind of view the shortlist in our list view here, which is where you can search through the list and every candidate that's matched on the left. Or you can view a public version of it. Maybe you're working with a client, you want to share them, or when we automatically notify users, they get sent the public version, which is this. And this is basically a list of all those engineers. It's enriched and it has information about what they did at each role and, you know, a short little summary of what team they were at, their custom fields. And from right here, they can send them phone screen invites. So this is, you know, a crux of what people use the app for, which is they quickly get a role onto here, begin advertising it, and screen all applicants as they come in. Now, if you're a bigger company that's got a lot of candidates in here, this is actually a great way of just searching through your talent database, because we enrich and normalize all the data that comes in here. So we're able to quickly search up things like, find me candidates who've worked on video streaming, TypeScript, and Next.js before, right? And this will fire off, our general agent, and it will go and sort of research the internet for relevant companies to video streaming, TypeScript, and Next.js. And it will actually go and automatically plug in the Booleans and try out different searches till it gets, an appropriate number of results. And those results will be plugged in right on the right here when it's done. But yeah, I'll pause here, kind of on the product. As you can see, we're really trying to build like an agentic platform for recruiting that's super focused on data. Our thesis is simply that we want to create really, really beautiful job ads that screen candidates as they come in initially, to kind of own more job ads through the market, right? This first layer job ad, what it allows us to do is it allows us to do things like block auto apply bots. It allows us to do things like screen candidates like right on the time of application as opposed to later. And it even allows us to give, the users like analytics around, what parts of the job advertisement resonated with candidates. As people create these job advertisements, they're also helping us understand more and more about their company, which allows us to surface their company to candidates that are a match, right? The thesis here is the more we know about companies, the more we know about candidates, because candidates are essentially just giving us lists of companies and screenshots of time of when something there happened. And as we build up this data set, we're able to really leverage that, right? So as you can see here, the search has sort of finished, and I'll get my results. And what's really cool here is like it picked companies that it thinks are relevant. So you see here, pick Netflix, Hulu, Twitch, YouTube, BritBox, and basically all of the candidates that are showing up right now are candidates that have worked there in the past. So yeah, I think that's a lot of what Cooked is. I'd love to answer questions. I know it's quite a bit, but we're just serving a lot of needs, and recruiting just has a lot of bits and pieces, I would say.
I've got a question on like the workflow piece of it. Like, how does that automatically get pulled in from the job ad and then you can tweak it, or how are recruiters in there? Like, do you have to go in and manually kind of create those every single time?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what for our larger customers, this is when they would work with Sebastian, and he can sort of dig into the process, but he does an intake call and he's able to set up an initial version of these flows for them.
Yeah, we will work on inferring what the company is looking for and translating that into screens and signals for users. Currently, to Ali's point, I build out a lot of these for customers, but as a user, if you're a recruiter using the platform, there are a batch of public screeners / signals that you can pull from. So you can add a screener that says, hey, I want candidates that have gone to the top CS schools, right? I want candidates that have worked at the top consumer startups. And there's this whole set of public screeners that you can just plug and play and add, but you can also create custom ones. And the custom ones can be a combination of really robust Booleans. So you can just copy paste in like 100 companies separated by commas. It's really, really fast to add. Or semantic, like the ones that Ali showed, where you're just typing in natural language what it is exactly you're looking for. So you have the ability to do both. You can pick from the templates, or you can make custom ones, and eventually we'll create these on the fly for people.
Makes sense.
I've got a question for you, and Sebastian and Ali. Thanks for presenting this, and it's very possible I missed something, so I apologize if my question is a little bit more basic here. But I'm a little confused as to the final outcome here. And so if I think about, you've talked about making these job descriptions. I think you used the word, beautiful, right, and interactive, and being able to do some screening on the front end. But then you've also alluded to candidates are giving you information, and you're hinting at creating almost like a candidate database. But then you've also mentioned sitting on top of an ATS, right, as a plugin. So could you talk about where you play and sort of what the goal or the vision is? Because we're talking about different pieces of kind of a stack, right? And I just wanted some more clarity there. And again, apologies if you've already said it, but I just missed that if you did.
It's okay. There's two outcomes for users. One is surfacing the candidates that are a good fit for the role automatically. You either set up your job postings on Cooked directly, or you have Ashby Greenhouse, and then you still set up the postings on Cooked. From the pool of candidates that are applying, we'll let you know who is a good fit automatically without manual review. The secondary part of that, which is the candidate pool part that you touched on, is the ability to retroactively search your candidates that have applied historically, right? So maybe it's not a job posting that you have actively, but you're spinning up a new role. You have a candidate pool of people who have been interested in your company historically, and you want to be able to search through them quickly and find if there's anyone in the past that is a good fit for a new role that has applied. And something that Ali didn't touch on, but something we will work on in the future is, as candidates' experience changes over time, we'll keep you notified on that, and we'll be updating their profiles for you. So somebody applied a year ago, 2-3 years ago, and at the time they weren't a great fit. Now you have a new role, their experience has changed, whereas on other ATSs, the candidates' data has not been updated. We'll update it for you, and we'll know if they're a good fit, right? And they showed interest in the past, so you probably want to be able to start with those candidates. The ones that showed interest in the past, weren't a good fit, are now a good fit, and are somewhat warm because they were interested in you before.
Just to also to add on vision, Scott, because I understand it's confusing. Essentially, we would like to be the full-blown ATS that everyone's using for their entire talent function. Our initial wedge here happens to be with engineering roles. And what we've noticed is that people are fine changing the top of funnel as to where they collect candidates, and then just exporting that data back into their ATS. So currently we do integrate, but the longer we work with some of our customers, the more they just sort of bring on more roles onto the app, and they just sort of switch off their ATS and start using us as the main ATS. So for now, we're sort of this plugin that's really in charge of screening things. But it could, it essentially grows into being your database when you are ready to switch off of your main ATS, or if we caught you early on enough. And then what I was hinting at during my demo is eventually we've built up such a good and quality data set of companies and what they do that we see ourselves eventually being candidate facing, in the sense that we can actually help candidates find jobs, right, that are on the platform, because there'd be so many jobs already. So the idea is, is to get a bunch of job postings first, to start collecting candidates and start being the interface that candidates are used to and employers are used to of advertising the role. Eventually just be the talent system where they have all their candidates when they do all their hiring, and eventually allow candidates to search the roles on the platform in a smart way, because we think that'll really help the employers that are already on the platform. So just in phases, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I don't know if other people have questions, so I'll pause there. So thanks.
I have a quick question for you guys. So obviously in this group, just to give you kind of some clarity, we're a little bit of a mixed bag, but I would say predominantly a lot of us are in the startup space, kind of working for smaller organizations, not doing super high volume hiring. I guess, who is your target customer for this product specifically?
Yeah, so we've mostly found that at early stage startups, pre-talent teams, you have a founder or an engineer, an engineering manager who's been tasked with hiring, and they're not sure how to go about it. So this is where this is the entry point for most of our users. I'm an engineer. I need to hire more people for my team. I don't know how to do that. I know Sebastian, I know Cooked, and they'll handle it for us. They get job postings up for us. They'll attract talent. They'll surface anyone that's great, so I don't have to do manual resume review, and they'll send a short list of candidates that I should set phone screens up with. The second set is, and this is actually how Ali and I started working together. I was at WAP and I was running talent, and as you guys know, there's a lot of things that you have to do to hire, even if it's not high volume. You really want to do inbound really well, outbound really well, events, referrals, etc. I thought I could set up inbound to be systematic. I really want to get my startup's brand on the internet, make sure people know about us, make sure people can show interest in a really frictionless way and or apply. And I want that to be set up, and I want to know if anyone great applies. And then I want to spend the rest of my time talking to people, meeting people, getting referrals, running events, doing outbound, sourcing, etc. And that is a secondary ICP, the first recruiter, a head of talent at a startup that is hiring for the entire organization. And they want to make sure that one, they're increasing their brand visibility on the internet, and then two, if anyone is interested in talking with them and is a good fit, they know automatically, without anyone falling in the cracks, without opportunity costs going towards resume review.
I think there's a question in the chat here, by the way. I feel like this one's for you, Seb.
Are we driving traffic to our job postings? Right now, we will advertise on behalf of our users where there's traffic already. We'll advertise on LinkedIn. We'll advertise on domain-specific job boards. So if somebody's hiring a design engineer, I will post it on designengineer.io, etc. Product design roles will go, where product designers are, and so on. And we'll also advertise on location-specific boards like Built-in, New York City, etc. So we're advertising on behalf of our users. The traffic is getting pointed back to the Cook job postings, and we're also doing advertising via my own brand. Eventually, we will do this and also have native traffic from Cooked, which will become the best place to actually discover net new roles.
Yeah, we're also working on making that all programmatic, but a lot of these, like especially LinkedIn, it's very hard to get programmatic access to post jobs until you reach a certain run rate, and develop like a partnership. So a lot of this stuff has to be just like hybrid software service for now.
Sorry, can you clarify, because to advertise on LinkedIn and Built-in, you need to attach it to an employer profile. So are you saying that Cooked has an employer profile where they post jobs that you're basically pointing candidates back to the employer on your behalf?
I can sort of show you. So
yeah, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, we have by the way, we can just share more info to generate more questions. So we have a partnership with LinkedIn where we pay for Apply Connect, we pay for job slots as Cooked. And what they've been able to do for us is we're able to post jobs on behalf of other companies. So this job, for example, is for GovDash, one of our clients, and Sebastian is the one who posted it from our account. So this job is now being advertised because of Apply Connect. When they click on Apply, they end up on a Cooked job posting, right? And so this is the same sort of setup you'd have if you were using Ashby, for example. You'd redirect this Apply button to Ashby. Does that clarify for you, Andy, or let me know where else I should think?
I think part of the challenge is that like you may end up with folks who already have their own paid job slots, who may already have their own paid built-in profiles. And so I think like if that's part of the value proposition that you're doing all of these posts on behalf of, I think to your point, it would have to be really early stage where nobody has thought to like start purchasing those agreements, and then once people do start building those partnerships out, the value of what you're providing is going to start decreasing over time. If you feel like that's a significant part of the value, is cross posting onto these other platforms versus the company who already has or is about to get access to some of those sites. Just a thought off the top of my head.
I've found that customers fall into two categories. Either they have no attention or traffic, and we will generate that for them and then screen the candidates on their behalf, or they fall in the category of too much attention. And I often hear they put a job posting up on LinkedIn, they get 500 applicants, they close it out, and then they go through them manually. And so it is actually a really ideal case for us if a company is doing a lot on their behalf to generate traffic, whether it's organic traffic because they're a company that's getting a lot of attention, like Kalshi, and they have no means of processing their inbound and finding people that are great, or they're generating traffic via running their own job postings. And then they still run into the same problem of an inability to surface candidates that are great from their applications. But that is a great point.
Yeah, I think this is also a good time. Oh, sorry, David, go ahead.
I was gonna ask to clarify, and I joined late, so apologies for that. I was on a client call. So it sounds like on the second case that you described, or what, based on Andy's question, that you guys are saying, hey, pay us, we'll go through your 1,000 applicants, and then for that, in return for that, based on your offering, it looks like 10,000 candidates or resumes, and you guys are going to say, hey, we'll go through it and we'll give you guys the top 5 candidates of these applications, because obviously the assumption is you guys don't have the time to go do it yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Okay. I was back when I started recruiting about 12 years ago. I was offering up this service for my clients, because this was during the time that I was in oil and gas. So I turned to, hey, you guys have a lot of candidates applying. Why don't you pay me to go through them, and I can identify the ones that you really want, right? And it was a hard sell. So I understand what you guys are doing in that regard. So yeah, okay. Sorry.
So that's great though. It's so cool that you're selling that. What we've noticed too is well, a big part of the value prop, and this is also a good time to talk about business models. I realized we didn't touch on that. We want to generate. What we've noticed is a lot of the newer people who don't hire, or have never hired before, they don't know how to generate traffic for their postings, and so because our offer is so related to screening a lot of applicants, we need a lot of applicants to apply. And so it makes a lot of sense for us to also be the people that get a lot of applicants to apply. And so part of the offer is we currently charge $1,000 per role per month. You're paying that $1,000 per role. Some of it is going into advertising and the service part of managing these advertisements that you wouldn't know to post. And then the rest of it is obviously going towards the software that is helping you turn all that traffic into good candidates. So it could be a tough sell, but in my opinion, sometimes it's an easier sell than maybe a contingent model where they'd have to pay maybe 30 to 40K for that same hire that we're able to do in a month or two, for just $1,000, $2,000. And yeah, for traction numbers, but just this month we were just about 15K a month in run rate. And we're working with over 8 companies. Some of them have multiple roles, and some of them have a single or 2 roles. So we've had a lot of success selling it this month, which is the same month where we officially launched it.
I have a quick question for you guys, because I know you mentioned, so one thing that we've seen as this group, and we've seen a couple of tools like this, and it's becoming a more prevalent conversation in recruiting, but I know you mentioned earlier there's a way to almost stop auto apply bots or something along those lines. Have you do you have a long-term plan or product vision of, especially if you're trying to drive applications? A big problem that we're starting to see is that there's a lot of fraudulent applications, right? And that's what's wasting so much time and energy from recruiters. Have you thought about implementing something like that, maybe a stronger tool into what you're currently building. I think that could be a pretty big value add too.
Yeah. So that is 100% some of the technology we've already built and technology we plan on building. The reason we're so obsessed with owning this job posting or job advertisement, like piece of digital real estate, is because it allows us to like easily implement things that'll scrub out bots, that'll force candidates to authenticate fully before applying. We own the screening process essentially, which is how we can stop these bots before they happen. So yeah, totally. We've thought about it. We already have things in place that'll catch like your normal fake candidate. It's like, I don't know, like a spy from a different country. And we're working on really, really powerful like bots, like anti-bot stuff, especially because like some of these newer startups like using virtual browsers. So yeah, it's an ongoing effort, but it's very doable as long as you are where candidates apply, which is why we're really stuck on that.
Awesome. Thanks. I want to be able to give y'all some time to ask the group questions as well. Does anybody else have questions before we flip it around?
I'll just make a comment. Like I appreciate you guys doing this, but I don't like that you guys are trying to cut. Like I'm an agency recruiter, so I like my $30,000 fees. I like, I earn them. They're hard, and they don't take me 2 months. I've gotten offers in a day. I've gotten offers in 2 weeks or less. So, but carry on, guys.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the beautiful things is, as an ex-agency owner, especially if you're working with multiple companies, and actually, maybe Ali can show the highway gig of flow. I had an agency early this year before we all went all in on software. There were a lot of startups in New York that wanted to work with me for hiring engineers. And ultimately, I have my own brand. I have attention online. I have engineers that want to work with me, and I'll put job postings out. And, of course, I'll source online and do outbound, but there's a lot of inbound interest. And, for the agency model, you can use the same workflows for screening. And because there's sequential screening, you can actually take one candidate pool, one funnel, and then segment it out via people that have worked at certain stage companies, certain industries, certain archetypes of roles. Maybe they're design engineer, backend engineer, infra engineer, etc. Maybe they know Rust, maybe know Python. And then you can segment them out and use that to power your agency, right? So as somebody that's worked at agencies, on agencies, I would actually really like to have more agencies use the product. And I think in that case, it's actually a really, really great arbitrage opportunity for agencies who want to be able to make some placements from the attention that they're getting online, and then talk to the candidates, prep them, make sure they're great, and then make the introductions to companies, which is still very, very valuable.
Yeah. And our long-term vision, David, is definitely not to compete with the recruiters, but just more like offer the software and the tech that is like candidate routing. And, whoever is doing whatever can use it for whatever they'd like. The service is just like a wedge in right now, I think. Or at least that's the way we look at it.
No, I appreciate that. I'm not trying to undercut you guys. You're, and I'm not taking it personally, but it clearly says on your website, cut $20,000 in contingent fee. I'm like, I like my $1 million, a year contingency fees, so it's, but yeah, it's just, I just, and I could whitelist you guys, I'm not, I don't know if $1,000 is, I'm not getting 10,000 resumes to sift through. I'm not like, I'm a headhunter. I'm not, part of being a boutique agency recruiting firm is the mystique, right? If it's all out there, then it kind of takes away a lot of what is warranted.
That's fair. Yeah.
Awesome. Any more questions from the group? I want to give them some time to ask us questions as well. All right, awesome. Any questions for us, you guys? Happy to kind of be a sounding board for you. Obviously, we've got some pretty tenured folks here. We've been doing this for a while, so feel free to ask us any questions.
Yeah, well, I think initially I'm curious. There's a lot of surfaces to the platform. I'm curious what parts of it you feel like are the most valuable, or could go into your existing workflows. And any takers?
I'll kick off. I'll kick off. So Syelo actually does, we do kind of run like an RPO. It's part of like our revenue generation here under our umbrella. And we do work with candidates that are pretty early stage, haven't figured out branding. We also work with companies that have great branding, but we also get a ton of applications and it takes a while to sift through. They don't have good systems for that. Again, I think for me, personally, and especially because we've just seen this become kind of an issue, and I've seen it personally become an issue, is on the application front, making sure that we're not getting fraudulent applications, right? Like and we've seen like it's been so advanced, even in the last 6 months, it's been crazy. Like that even happened to Syelo. We kind of got stuck in a little loop of like somebody was using our name for stuff. So I think that would be a really beneficial tool on my end. And I would look at it from a lens of like, I would probably use this if I was having to go through so many applications. Like this tool to me sounds more on that front versus like a branding front. I think if there's one thing that a lot of recruiters are good at, it's selling their brand. It's selling a company. So I don't know if that's necessarily like, startups are hard to sell, but a good recruiter can sell their startup. So I don't know if branding for me would be an issue, but from a sifting through fraudulent applications, I could see this helping out in that realm.
Nice.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm curious because you guys have seen so many products. Where do you think, like in your workflows today, or in the general like problem space of recruiting from your perspective today, where do you think there is still like room for a software-based solution like make a huge change? Like, is there any software or tool you guys are using right now that is just out of date or just not effective, where you're just like, how is it still like this? It's 2025. We have AI.
Yeah, I mean, I can comment on that. I don't think there's a specific thing that is, to your point, out of date. I think there's a lot of different pieces, right, that don't necessarily work together. And obviously, depending upon the company stage, I mean, you could look at AI and go, what kind of regulations are there in terms of if you're a public company versus if you're a startup, and how do you secure your data, and how do you train data and remove bias, and there's a lot of questions that go along with the evolution of technology. Somebody put in the chat, right, LinkedIn. Yes, 100% agree with that in terms of if you're saying where do you go out to market and go to find candidates, everyone's talking about LinkedIn, right? There's really not many other options. So I don't look at it as more of an ATS specific issue, because I think every ATS has different capabilities, pros and cons. I look at it more as a where do you find talent challenge.
See, and yeah, I'm curious what I mean, everybody talks about hating LinkedIn. LinkedIn gets a lot of hate, but I'm curious about specific hate. What I'm guessing we're talking about LinkedIn Recruiter, right? In most cases here, but I'm curious about what everybody hates the most about LinkedIn.
It's too costly for what it does, and it's like LinkedIn Recruiter just doesn't service the best results all the time. Even different ways you can configure it, it's still not the best.
They have no competition, so there's nobody like tempering their costs. Like Michael said, there's nobody out there like defining what the cost of recruiter should be, right? They can charge as much as they want because they're the only product like it, and they have nobody like competing with them to make the product better. Like they can make the product as expensive and as crappy as they want, and people still, it's like a necessary evil.
Interesting. And has anyone here tried like the most popular alternative to Recruiter right now, which is Juicebox? How do you guys feel about these companies that let you like search data sets that they've scraped or something like that from LinkedIn?
We are familiar with Juicebox. We had them on here, like one of our first Syelo tanks, actually. But I think quite a few of our members use them. And from what I've seen, it's a mixed bag. I'm not sure if anybody's using it currently. We've seen like 50-50, actually. You either love it or you hate it.
Interesting.
Have you guys found any Juicebox alternatives that do sourcing but better search?
I had a 2-day trial with pin.com, PIN, and I was pretty impressed with its user interface and its all-in-one kind of campaign outbound. It's about half the price of LinkedIn, if I recall, at $300 a month for one user. I mean, I guess it gets expensive. You have more than one use, a couple of users or whatever, $500 if it's 3 kind of thing. But yeah, that's one. Another one that's tempted to use is Talon, TALIN, and they. I like them because they do both sides. As an agency recruiter, like I don't worry about just finding candidates. I need to also find new clients and update my clients and that kind of thing. So my and right now, I mean, I would actually, that's a good point. Like I think the case can be really well made to switch from LinkedIn to Pen. I do think it'll get really expensive really quickly if you go with the $300 a month route per user. Because more than 3 users now you're paying, 10 grand or whatever it is. So, or $900 a month. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Yeah, and to Andy's point, I don't know if y'all saw it in the chat. To Andy's point, a lot of these companies, I think Juicebox included, they all of their business comes from LinkedIn. They're essentially scraping LinkedIn. So at some point, they're all going to get, in trouble. Their wrist slapped. I think it's already happened a couple of times. So we, as a group of evaluators, we do evaluate for that quite a bit, especially from the source. We've seen a lot of sourcing tools, obviously, in this group. So that's one thing that we typically ask, like right off the bat.
Yeah. We've had a lot of folks. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was gonna say, Sebastian and Ali, like the thing that, as a group, right, that generally impresses us or that we look for is for a company to be good at something, right, and have a point of view and some sticking power within that thing, and not trying to be everything to everybody, and then being able to expand on that, right? So it's not something they're good at something and it's a shallow pool. It's they're good at something and there's growth there. And I think, I would defer to others, but that's one of the challenges that we often see. It's here's a sequencing platform, here's a sourcing platform. Well, how do you grow that, right? So I think that's a challenge, and I would just be mindful as to kind of what are you all good at, what do you want to hang your hat on, and what are you really driving value for your customers on.
Yeah. We've gotten a lot of requests historically to do sourcing on LinkedIn, and the pushback has always been that you don't want to lean on LinkedIn as a platform. You could buy a data set for $50K and then rebuild Juicebox in a week, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that. Something that we didn't touch on now as we're thinking about this or talking about this is when you extrapolate away beyond the job ads, there's no great way to discover companies, startups, roles. There's job boards and search, but search there is not that good. And and Ali can touch on vision here, but long-term vision is become a career discovery platform, become the best place to find new companies, new roles, new cool people. You parlay that into getting the actual people and the candidates and talent, and you essentially rebuild LinkedIn from the ground up. but in a way that's extremely data centric, without a lot of the bloat that's gotten into the platform. And yeah, I could pass it to Ali. Ali can touch on this, but the vision is to have this.
Well, I'm curious about you know, if you guys all here like do believe there's a chance to build a LinkedIn or a new LinkedIn comes up from scratch, right? You know, what would make it better? And to start the conversation off somewhere like for engineers, like I think we've always kind of like I don't like how the LinkedIn profiles themselves are very bias centric, and it seems like if the candidate is not working at a recognizable logo, you know, the profile really gives me no signal. So we've always been obsessed with adding more signals onto the profile and kind of more insights. But I'm curious, like if someone here was to build LinkedIn from scratch, like what would they even fix about it?
Well, so here are my thoughts on that. One of the problems with LinkedIn is that it's a melting pot of candidates and industries, and that's adds to its continued bloat, and it's an end all be all in terms of any industry. You know, pick one, right? So the thought of it, like for instance, if you pick like if I don't know, I used to recruit in construction, so if there was like a construction LinkedIn version, for instance, where only superintendents and project managers exist, and only VP of operations and COOs of commercial construction companies exist. Now we're talking about a specific market mastery platform where you know it lives in that world only. And so it serves the purposeful recruiters who are in that niche. It serves the purposeful hiring authorities who are in that niche, and it serves the candidates who are in that niche only, right? So it's just an example, right? There's like, if you know, you can't, if there was a way to, I mean, and that's what LinkedIn tries to do with like, hey, pick an industry and it's got all these industries and that kind of thing, but it's imperfect. But I'm talking about like wholeheartedly only if you don't have an construction engineering degree or architecture engineering degree, you're not a construction project manager, you don't get on the platform, you know, that kind of thing. Like just, that's, you know, that would take balls to, excuse my French, but like to build that from scratch, right? And just go all in on that, or do it for lawyers, or do it for, you know, like tax professionals, right? And you know, again, these are niche, but that's really the only way I see like how you could build a, you know, rebuild a LinkedIn where each database is independent of each, literally.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when sorry, go ahead, Sabrina.
Oh, I was just going to say, to add to the LinkedIn conversation, I think a big issue with LinkedIn in general is that most of us are recruiting for engineers or pretty niche type positions. Engineers don't care about LinkedIn. They don't care about updating their profiles. Like something that would make almost like more community based and make it more engaging for people to actually want to present themselves. And even if they're not actively looking, like update that information. Honestly, like more like social media. I know that's annoying and people are like, no, don't make LinkedIn social media, but that's how you're going to engage people who even like who aren't looking, passive users, whatever the case may be. Like that's a big issue with LinkedIn, is that the amount of people that you can find are very limited, and even then their information is usually not updated.
Yeah, so it seems like a curated candidate pool, like all of LinkedIn, but with a more curated candidate pool would be really, really interesting.
I think it's more verified and validated. Like, is this person who they say they are? Because right now there are people out there that are paying others to rent their literal like LinkedIn profiles so they can commit fraud. Like $200-300 a month for me to use your LinkedIn profile because it's had a history, your account has a bunch of activity on it. Like, I think verification and validation is important. And to David's point, being able to have different markets or niches that we can go after that actually have community engagement portion. But I'm sorry, Ali, to back up to your point about LinkedIn being like enabling bias with like logos and stuff like that, like you guys are advertising that on your website. Like I looked up the website just now and it's like get pinged when someone from Anthropic applies or get pinged when someone from Stanford applies. Like, is that something that you guys like actually feel like is a core belief that you want to reduce some of that bias? Because right now it kind of seems like you're just looking to keep reinforcing that.
Well, we're not trying to reinforce that. That was old copy that we were trying out. I do think though, it is the the best signal people have right now. And that's why I think there needs to be another format of profile. I don't think anyone likes to admit it, but it is really high signal if somebody worked at one of those companies. And that's because there's a lack of other signals everywhere on the profile, right? And yeah, I agree with you. Like, I don't like that copy either, like morally, at least, because I see the messages pushing. But to be honest with you, that's kind of what we've noticed about, inbound hiring, or this idea of like reviewing online profiles. There is such little signal to gain from an online profile that we've been forced to reduce signal to logos. And, like right now, our way of combating against that, for example, for the people that don't get caught up by those logos, is we parse what they wrote about their resume and we structure it in an easier to understand way. If we can't, because what they wrote is incoherent, we actually notify the candidate that, hey, like when we parsed your data, like this wasn't good. We'd really recommend rewriting it. It'll increase your chances of, getting not passed on. So we do definitely want to reduce that bias. But I think right now, when you're talking about parsing through inbound applications like large scale, it is unfortunately one of the few signals you have to go with. So that's kind of why we got on there. But yeah, that's what I'll say about that. I mean, once we have a better solution, we will advertise that. We are working on that.
Just to piggyback off that, these are like legacy signals that people are looking for, and we want to be able to create net new signals. We have technical screens. We didn't show them, but it's a code review game that can be built on the fly that is related back to a specific role, company, and tech stack. And ultimately, what we really want to be able to identify is, can this person cook at this role? Like, can they come in and build React components at a fintech company that's working on this, and do they have the ability to do that, regardless of the logos that are on their company? And eventually, what this will mean is that, what is otherwise looked as bad inbound, because when people are looking through the resumes, they're not seeing logos they recognize. Instead, you're surfacing people that maybe would have gotten passed on in the past, but would, objectively do really well in the role, because we know that they know TypeScript deeply, they know Next deeply, they know React internals, they can build components quickly, and we know that because we have signals that nobody else does. That is a really good point, and we are rebuilding the landing page, and yeah, I agree with you.
Awesome, y'all. I know we only have a couple minutes left, so just wanted to kind of wrap up this call. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We'll be talking as a group. We'll share this with the broader group as well, kind of keep you updated. Typically towards the end of the month, we'll have a better answer for you. But really appreciate y'all coming on, and thanks so much for presenting to our group.
Of
course. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the questions. And
Thanks, y'all. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.